Imagine, if you will, a man who never wrote a single word, yet whose ideas have shaped the entire course of Western thought. Socrates, a humble Athenian stonemason's son, dared to question everything: authority, tradition, and even the nature of knowledge itself. His relentless pursuit of truth and virtue challenged the foundations of Athenian society and, well, ultimately cost him his life. This documentary explores the life, teachings, trial, and enduring legacy of the philosopher who made questioning a way of life and whose influence honestly echoes through millennia. Socrates was born around 470 BCE in Athens, a city-state at the height of its cultural and political power. His father, Socrates, was a stonemason and sculptor, and his mother, Phanerete, was a midwife. Though his family was modest, Socrates' impact on philosophy would be, well, monumental. Athens was a city of contrasts. Democracy flourished, but so did political instability and war. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta from 431 to 404 BCE deeply scarred the city, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. Growing up in this environment, Socrates was exposed to the vibrant intellectual life of Athens. The city was home to poets, dramatists, politicians, and philosophers. The pre-Socratic philosophers had begun exploring the natural world and the cosmos, while sophists taught rhetoric and persuasion, often for personal gain. Socrates, however, would chart a different course, focusing on human ethics and the pursuit of wisdom. Little is known about Socrates' early education, but it likely included the standard curriculum for Athenian boys: reading, writing, music, gymnastics, and basic philosophy. He also served as a hoplite, a heavily armed infantry soldier in the Athenian army. His military service was marked by bravery in battles such as Potidaea, Delium, and Amphipolis, demonstrating his courage and commitment to Athens. Athens in the 5th century BCE was honestly a hotbed of intellectual activity and political experimentation. Philosophers like Heraclitus and Parmenides debated the nature of reality, while sophists traveled the city teaching rhetoric and relativism. The sophists' emphasis on winning arguments and their skepticism about absolute truth clashed with Socrates' quest for genuine knowledge and moral clarity. Socrates distinguished himself by rejecting the sophists' relativism and their practice of charging fees for teaching. Instead, he wandered the streets of Athens, engaging citizens in dialogue, questioning their beliefs, and exposing contradictions. His approach was not to lecture, but really to engage in conversation, challenging others to think critically about justice, virtue, and the good life. This intellectual environment was both fertile and fraught. Socrates' method unsettled many, as it exposed ignorance and pretension among Athens' leaders and citizens. His refusal to conform to popular opinion and his habit of questioning authority made him, well, a controversial figure. Socrates' most enduring contribution to philosophy is his method of inquiry, known as the Socratic method or elenchus. This technique involves asking a series of probing questions to challenge assumptions and reveal contradictions in the beliefs of his interlocutors. The goal was not to win arguments, but to stimulate critical thinking and move closer to truth. Unlike the sophists, who taught rhetoric for persuasion, Socrates sought genuine understanding. He famously claimed that he knew nothing except his own ignorance, a stance that paradoxically made him wiser than those who falsely believed they knew much. The Socratic method was a form of cooperative dialogue. Socrates would engage with politicians, poets, craftsmen, and youth alike, encouraging them to define their terms and justify their beliefs. Through this process, many realized their knowledge was superficial or inconsistent. This relentless questioning was both a philosophical tool and a way of life. Socrates believed that only by examining one's beliefs and values could a person live a truly good and meaningful life. At the heart of Socrates' philosophy was the conviction that, well, the unexamined life is not worth living. He argued that self-reflection and moral inquiry were, absolutely essential to human flourishing. For Socrates, philosophy was not just some abstract discipline, but rather a practical guide to living well. One of his central ideas was that virtue is knowledge. To know the good is essentially to do the good. So moral failings arise from ignorance rather than deliberate wrongdoing. This optimistic view suggested that education and philosophical inquiry could actually lead to moral improvement and a just society. Socrates also emphasized the importance of the soul, which he believed was immortal and really the true essence of a person. Caring for the soul through virtuous living was, in his view, far more important than wealth, power, or even physical pleasure. His discussions often focused on defining key ethical concepts such as justice, courage, piety, and temperance. Socrates challenged conventional wisdom, urging Athenians to think deeply about these virtues instead of just accepting popular opinions. Because Socrates wrote nothing himself, our understanding of him comes from the works of others, primarily his students Plato and Xenophon, and the playwright Aristophanes. Plato's dialogues are the richest source of Socratic philosophy. In works like the Republic, Meno and Phaedo, Socrates appears as a seeker of truth and moral clarity. Plato's portrayal is philosophical and idealized, presenting Socrates as a heroic figure who embodies wisdom and virtue. Xenophon's accounts, such as Memorabilia, offer a more practical and straightforward depiction of Socrates as a wise and ethical teacher. Xenophon's writings emphasize Socrates' everyday interactions and his concern for moral improvement. Aristophanes, in his comedic play The Clouds, satirized Socrates as a sophist and natural philosopher, mocking his unconventional ideas and manner. This portrayal reflects the suspicion and ridicule Socrates faced from some segments of Athenian society. Together, these sources provide a multifaceted picture of Socrates, philosopher, teacher, social critic, and controversial figure. In 399 BCE, Socrates was brought to trial on charges of impiety and corrupting the youth of Athens. The city was still recovering from the Peloponnesian War and internal political strife. Socrates' association with controversial figures and his habit of publicly questioning authority made him a target. The charges accused him of not believing in the gods of the city and of introducing new deities, as well as corrupting young Athenians by encouraging them to question traditional values. During the trial, as recorded in Plato's Apology, Socrates defended himself with remarkable courage and wit. He argued that he was a social gadfly sent by the gods to provoke Athens into self-examination and moral improvement. He refused to abandon his mission or flatter the jury, even when it meant risking death. Despite his defense, the jury found him guilty. Socrates was sentenced to death by drinking a cup of poison hemlock. His calm acceptance of death, described in Plato's Phaedo, exemplifies his commitment to his principles and his belief in the immortality of the soul. Socrates' death marked a turning point in philosophy. His martyrdom for truth and integrity inspired his followers, especially Plato, who founded the Academy, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Through Plato's dialogues, Socratic philosophy was preserved and expanded, influencing Aristotle and countless others. Socrates' emphasis on ethics, reason, and dialogue remains central to philosophy, education, and critical thinking. His life and death continue to provoke reflection on justice, freedom of speech, and the role of the philosopher in society. Socrates stands as a symbol of intellectual courage and the relentless pursuit of wisdom. Socrates' life challenges us to question our own beliefs and live with integrity. His legacy is not just in philosophy books, but in the very act of questioning that drives human progress. In a world full of noise and certainty, Socrates reminds us that true wisdom begins with admitting what we do not know. His story is a timeless call to examine our lives, seek truth, and live virtuously. An invitation that remains as urgent today as it was over 2 millennia ago.